It begins subtly, a slight shift in the air that your deeper mind registers long before your conscious mind does. It's not always a shouted insult. Often, it's a joke with an edge that cuts just a little too deep. It's the way your name is said, a tone that implies a dismissal, or a dismissive glance that lingers a moment too long. It's a momentary, almost phantom pressure on your boundaries. And what is our most common, most conditioned response to this psychological friction? We ignore it. We tell ourselves it's petty, or that we are above it, or that confronting it would create drama. We rationalize the erosion of our self-worth, convincing ourselves it's not worth the energy to react. We tuck the discomfort away, like a sharp stone in a pocket, only to feel its presence again later. This is the moment of original error, because in the vast landscape of human interaction, silence is not neutral. It is a profound declaration, the Machiavellian insight. By the time the disrespect escalates, when it's louder, sharper, more public and undeniable, it is already too late to respond with true authority. Why? Because the psychological frame has been set. Disrespect ignored is, quite literally, disrespect approved. Centuries ago, the philosopher Machiavelli, in his ruthless clarity, understood the terrifying simplicity of this truth better than anyone. He saw that, in the arena of human power and reputation, respect is not a courtesy you are simply granted. It is a boundary you must define and, when necessary, absolutely enforce. Machiavelli said that the moment of disrespect is never truly about the aggressor. It is a profound lesson for every single person watching. Your next move, or your lack of one, is the curriculum. It teaches everyone how to treat you from that moment forward. The psychological test. Disrespect, initially, is rarely a deep personal vendetta. It is a psychological test. The aggressor is probing your defenses, testing the integrity of your inner fortress. They're asking, will this person hold the line, or are they an easy target? And if you fail this primary test, you're not just temporarily marked as weak. You are permanently marked as safe to disrespect again. The question is, how do you respond to a test of your sovereignty without descending into the very emotional drama the aggressor craves? The strategic withdrawal, silence as a weapon. The answer is immediate action, but an action that is entirely internal, entirely strategic. You must go silent. But understand, this silence is not a passive retreat. It is a sudden, tactical withdrawal. Here is the first Machiavellian law of handling disrespect. The person who reacts emotionally loses status, but the person who withdraws strategically becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability, to the human mind, generates a low-level, unsettling fear. This stillness is not ignoring the slight. It is the refusal to give it the vital energy it needs to survive. You do not laugh it off to appease the room. You do not pretend you didn't hear it. And crucially, you do not explain how it made you feel. Emotional explanations are a gift to the aggressor. Instead, you make them feel your complete and utter absence. It's a hard, unexpected pause in the rhythm of the interaction. A sudden black hole in a conversation where they expected to maintain control. Disrespect is a social pathogen. It only thrives when it receives the feedback loop it was designed to solicit: laughter, defensiveness, or anxious appeasement. When it is met with a cold, unwavering stillness, it is revealed for what it truly is: a cheap, desperate, and failed attempt at dominance. After the initial shock of stillness, the human impulse screams for immediate retaliation. We are conditioned to return a slight with a slight, to use anger to mask the underlying vulnerability. This is the oldest trap in the social hierarchy. Why? Because the person who has disrespected you expects an emotional reaction. They want to see you triggered, off balance, and insecure. They want to confirm their ability to control your emotional state. They want you to fight their fight. This is where you must remember the deep wisdom of observation. Machiavelli never struck first. He watched. He allowed his enemies to fully and confidently reveal their hand before he ever responded. When he did act, it was never with apologetic fury or messy emotion. It was with surgical precision. That is your next move, to mirror back the violation, not through an insult, but through a question. Mirroring the violation, the power of exposure. What the aggressor doesn't expect is exposure. They anticipated triggering your insecurity. You will trigger their self-doubt. You maintain firm, unwavering eye contact. You might slightly tilt your head, a subtle, non-aggressive signal of deep, analytical thought. And then, with a voice that is surgically calm, you utter a line that forces them to take ownership of their own aggression. Did you mean to say it that way? Are you sure you want to repeat that? That sounded personal. Want to clarify before I respond? Each of these lines is a controlled incision. You are not denying the attack. You are simply inviting them to make it again. On the record, you force them to double down to make their aggression public and undeniable. The architecture of doubt. Here's the profound psychological mechanism at work. Most people who disrespect you aren't actually bold. They are opportunistic. They are merely testing boundaries to see who will check them. The moment you meet their move with silent, cold clarity, they are forced to confront the potential social cost of their action. They begin to doubt their own position. Machiavelli saw that the ultimate goal in this moment is not revenge or drama, but the creation of doubt. Doubt is a corrosive agent to their confidence. The person who can cause hesitation, who makes people stumble, correct themselves, and second-guess their words doesn't need to loudly demand respect. They radiate it. Their presence becomes a subtle, unsettling force field. When they are forced to clarify or repeat their insult, they often fold. The subtle aggression that felt safe a moment ago is now illuminated in the harsh light of accountability, and they retreat, often mumbling an apology or a poor excuse. But the game doesn't end when they retreat. This moment of confrontation is a powerful recalibration point for the entire social dynamic. Most people can handle one direct confrontation. What they cannot handle is consistency. If you handle the single moment well, that's good. But if they sense that your boundary is still cracked, if your energy softens later, they will test it again. The subtle aggressor is a patient opportunist. Therefore, the third strategic step is to immediately reframe the relationship. You cannot and must not return to normal. You don't pretend nothing happened. You must immediately redraw the line in how you speak to them, how you show up in their presence, and how socially unavailable you now become. This is the psychological aftermath that truly solidifies your status. The momentary confrontation, the silence, the surgical question was the necessary check. But the true work is the recalibration of the entire relationship. You don't return to normal. You don't pretend the violation was an isolated incident. Instead, you redraw the line in how you interact, how you show up, and how unavailable you now become to that person. This is the long game of self-respect. Machiavelli knew that public punishment, when perfectly justified and timed, does more than just end an immediate threat. It educates the entire room. If the disrespect happened in front of others, your new posture must echo louder and longer than any witty comeback ever could. This is how you enforce the boundary. Withdraw your warmth. The spontaneous, easygoing energy you once offered is gone. Sharpen your language. Your words become economical, precise, and devoid of unnecessary social filler. Refuse their invitations. The subtle gestures of inclusion, a casual chat, a shared laugh are now denied. You don't need to announce the shift. Let them and everyone watching feel it. This is the difference between the respected and the ignored. It's not dominance through intimidation. It is presence through principle. You have wordlessly declared to the room, I am not available for that, and I will not explain myself to make you comfortable about it. The social current shifts. Others take note and become cautious. Your name is spoken with more calculation, less ease. The subtle aggressor rarely gives up after one failure. They will test the boundary again, not in the same loud, abrasive way, but in subtler, more corrosive ways. They want to see if you truly meant your initial response. They might joke again, but just with a smile this time. Exclude you from a minor decision and call it an oversight. Make a passive-aggressive comment and watch your face for even a flicker of hesitation. This moment, when they cross the line again, is your cue for the definitive. Second move, reinforce the frame through disproportionate consequence. Machiavelli's philosophy was never built on fairness. It was built on effectiveness. He understood a chilling truth few are willing to accept today. If the punishment is equal to the offense, it is forgettable. But if it is greater, it becomes unforgettable. You are not reacting emotionally. You are sending a clear, strategic message. You don't get to play with me twice. When they cross the line again, you must go. Colder, not louder. If they made the mistake publicly, you return the message publicly, but with surgical rejection, not insults. Scenario 1, the public comment. They make a snide comment. You pause, look them dead in the eye, and without acknowledging their statement, immediately address the rest of the group, shifting the entire social focus away from them. Scenario 2, the direct question. They ask you a question. You respond with a single, polite, non-committal word, and immediately shift your attention elsewhere. Scenario 3, the attempted reconciliation. They try to reclaim your former warmth. You offer them the social equivalent of a closed door, polite, formal, and utterly distant. This is not aggression. It is removal. You're not trying to defeat them. You're demonstrating something far more chilling. They have lost access. The deepest psychological wound is not being insulted, but being ignored by someone who used to acknowledge you. This is where most people fail. They yearn to be liked. They want to smooth things over. They want to believe that being the bigger person will magically earn them admiration. Machiavelli, observing the chaotic dance of human ambition, would scoff at this. Respect, he knew, is not earned through forgiveness. It is earned through calculated consequence, delivered with silence, not anger. The consequence must feel heavier than the slight itself to be effective, to make them realize that the price of crossing you is a loss of your valuable social energy and presence. That is the leverage that begins to truly recast your image. In the aftermath of the second violation and your cold, disproportionate consequence, people are watching always. They saw the moment of initial disrespect, they observed your calculated response, and now they are watching to see if you will revert to your old, compliant self, or if you truly meant the new boundary you projected. This is your profound opportunity to recast your image. According to Machiavelli, image is more powerful than truth. The image you build. Post-conflict becomes your armor or your exposure. You want your silence, your distance, and your controlled presence to be read by the room as, "He doesn't tolerate that. She won't engage if disrespected." You only get one chance with them. When your name begins to carry these specific associations, everything changes. People speak more carefully around you. They stop joking at your expense. They introduce you to others using terms like no nonsense, sharp, or intense. That is your new power. You didn't beg for it. You built it one surgical response at a time. But there is a deeper layer to this game, a more difficult challenge. Some people are not deterred by public shame or the loss of social warmth. They don't care about approval. They crave your reaction. They thrive on destabilizing others, on being the disruptor who tests boundaries for sport. When these specific types meet someone who refuses to be emotionally triggered, they will either retreat entirely or escalate. If they continue their corrosive behavior, that is your cue for the third level of response. Leverage their disrespect against them. You do not escalate emotionally. You escalate socially. The goal now is to use their own behavior against them, not with anger, but with control and strategic precision. If the aggressor has influence, reputation, or a professional role, you begin framing them. You are not arguing with the insult itself. You are spotlighting the insecurity behind it. This framing is done through specific, calm, and pointed questions designed to collapse their aggression into smallness. You might ask, "That's an interesting joke. Do you use that one at work, too?" Or, if they are speaking to friends, you might interject, "If you talk to your friends like that, I'd hate to hear how you talk to strangers." A classic maneuver. "I'm surprised you said that out loud." You are making them wear their own words in front of others. This is when their confidence begins to truly shrink. Not because you overpowered them with volume, but because you made the room and them remember what their aggression really is: small, noisy, and insecure. Machiavelli saw this kind of retaliation. It's never loud or rushed. It is measured, targeted, and executed with such calm precision that the aggressor doesn't even realize how badly they've been checkmated. You remain poised and calm. You have allowed the disrespect to hang in the air, and then you have collapsed it into something that the aggressor now permanently owns. That's how power is built in silence, by making every disrespectful act a step toward the aggressor's own exposure. You no longer chase respect because everyone around you now knows. You don't argue. You don't explain. You don't tolerate. You end it quietly, surgically, and permanently. The threat without threatening. What most people fail to understand is that disrespect does not thrive on boldness. It thrives on a perceived safety. Their safety. They insult you because they believe there will be no consequence. They push because they are confident you've never pushed back before. The fuel of most disrespect is the assumption that you won't do anything. Machiavelli, however, understood a deeper truth. Power isn't about striking often. It's about creating the sense that you could. That at any moment you might choose to respond in a way they didn't expect and won't be able to contain. This is the next level. You become a threat without ever threatening. You don't need to say a word. You just need to become harder to predict. Your job is not to get them to like you. It's to make them uncertain of you. In the aftermath of establishing your boundary, and when you've already made it clear where that line lies, your job changes fundamentally. It is no longer to get the transgressor to like you. It is to make them uncertain of you, not overtly scared or intimidated, just deeply unsure. Their mind should be filled with questions. Did I go too far? Why is he so quiet right now? Why didn't they respond like before? That psychological uncertainty becomes your shield. The person they are unsure of is the person they start instinctively avoiding. This is a profound, nonverbal form of defense. Machiavelli warned rulers against being too transparent, too consistent, or too readable. He knew that a ruler who is easy to understand becomes easy to manipulate. When you are silent, unreadable, and controlled, when you respond once cold and surgical, and then retreat again behind stillness, you become an anomaly. In any social setting, anomalies shift dynamics. People begin deferring to you not out of fear, but out of instinct. The mind naturally protects itself from what it doesn't fully understand. So you lean into this enigma. You don't talk as much as others. You observe for longer than is comfortable. You say less than expected, but when you do speak, every word lands. Here is the psychological twist that separates the respected from the merely popular. Most people believe respect comes from being liked. It doesn't. It comes from being felt. When you walk into a room and the air changes, when people lower their voices, adjust their posture, and recalibrate their tone, that's not popularity. That's presence. And presence is built through contradiction. You don't always respond. But when you do, cuts. You don't need to dominate, but you absolutely refuse to be crossed. You don't ask for respect, but you remove access the moment it's violated. That is how your entire energetic field becomes a warning, a silent, unspoken consequence wrapped in calm control. The final, most difficult transformation is stopping the reaction to disrespect as if it's personal. You must start treating it as information. This is where your mind separates from the average person. The average person hears an insult and feels pain. You, the architect of consequence, hear it and think, ah, there's the weak spot in them. They mock you, and you don't flinch because you see through the act. You read the deeper need behind the disrespect. Insecurity, jealousy, fear, projection, or a desperate need to assert control in an area where they feel none. That is the ultimate twist of power. When someone disrespects you, it reveals them, not you. So you log it. You remember it and move forward, not by forgiving, but by calculating. You are no longer playing emotional chess. You are in an orchestrating position. Machiavelli taught that the best position is one where others fear violating your boundary. Even when you're not there, that is when you've won. Not when people admire you, but when your absence carries the same weight as your presence. The people who are never disrespected aren't always the loudest. They are the ones who have made disrespect too expensive. They can't disrespect you if they can't reach you. They can't undermine you if you never stood on their approval to begin with.